The dynamic duo known as the Holy Brothers, Marvin Etzioni and OG Discograffiti Soldier of Sound Willie Aaron, have a new album out called High in My Balloon. This remarkable album is the triumphant result of the two friends turning to music for comfort and strength after Marvin's bout with leukemia and Willie was forced to deal with the loss of his wife of 25 years to cancer. Americana Highways described it as like Brian Wilson snuck into the studio, fired up the machines, and did some work on some of the tracks not locked up. Really, the harmonies, basic tracks, songwriting, and lots of other odds and ends are that momentous. If you love the harmonies and sonic experimentation of Bookends era Simon & Garfunkel, the Beach Boys, and Beck's Circus Sea Change, you owe it to yourself to dig into the musical wonders of High in My Balloon by the Holy Brothers, available right now on Regional Records. Future Prophet Records is at it again, filling the charts with all the greatest hits from another dimension, a dimension where great music rules the airwaves like it used to in this one. Swear Tapes presents Crooked Teeth, available right now on Future Prophet Records. That's Future, Prophet Records.com. Order now. Is there one song in particular that brings you back to those days with a force that's almost too much?
That's an interesting question. Not with anything that's a force that's too much. As I listened through these first 4 albums for you, I was really drawn to how honest and how important it all was to us. We weren't sideman to our own project, you know?
Yeah.
So all this music and all the arrangements we did, we had a lot of discussion through the arrangements of the songs. Sometimes it went easy, sometimes it didn't go easy, but everybody wanted to put their best shot forward and wanted to make it work. That's why we rehearsed relentlessly. Our rehearsals weren't just an arrangement bashing episode. It was an investigation of your playing, an investigation of the music, and trying to develop your own playing and your own concepts and broaden your scope. So if this answers your question at all, that period of time was really important to everybody, to really create the best you could.
Oh, it comes across for sure. Welcome to Discograffiti, the deep dive podcast for music obsessives that gives maniacs like you and me the chance to connect with a brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebrow, and when I was a kid, I thought I loved music. But no, that was only the beginning. I almost lost my life, and in the process, it made music a top priority in a way I'd thought was completely unimaginable. I quit my job, went all in on Discograffiti, and never looked back. And so, with 3 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about, or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on Jefferson Airplane! Psst, along with our special guest, Jack Casady. This episode is part of a series called Feed Your Head, The Great Jefferson Airplane Deep Dive, which I've consciously crafted to act as the ultimate repository of fact and opinion on one of the greatest bands ever to walk the face of the earth, the almighty Jefferson Airplane. It includes a whopping 30 episodes, featuring interviews with Jack Casady, Jorma Kaukonen, David Freiberg, and China Kantner, and it spans decades, as one could never hope to attain a comprehensive understanding of the airplane without at least a cursory overview of its starship mutations. Part 8 of the series features Jack and I doing a deep dive on every song off the band's classic sophomore effort. Here are just a few of the many things that Jack discusses with Discograffiti in this podcast. Skippy skips town and Spencer enters the fray, the odd initial gig that Spencer played with the group, bringing Jerry Garcia in as musical and spiritual advisor, the staggering backstory behind the writing and recording of Coming Back to Me, and an in-depth track-by-track deep dive on half the songs off Surrealistic Pillow. And away we go then!
Grace's sound, it was a different harmony structure than with singing, and it certainly unfolded to be a much more upfront, aggressive sound, vocal sound.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, Jefferson Airplane, at this point, that was the unique thing. I've come back to this all the time. As we instrumentalists started to develop and broaden our scope in the music and the arrangements, the harmonies and the vocal approaches got much more aggressive and in your face. So this tale that's being told in She Has Funny Cars, with the title and everything, it adds a lot more curiosity for the listener to figure out what the heck's going on.
Right. And by the way, Marty has said that the title is nothing more than surreal nonsense. But I got to tell you, I've always loved the title and everything about this particular song. In just over 3 minutes, you guys have defined psychedelic music.
Yeah, also there's a thing that you don't bring up much. There's a lot of humor in all this. There's kind of the beach stuff. And of course, some of the things we thought were funny back then may not be today. But that was our sort of thumbing your nose at some of the aspects of the way you approach a song. If somebody had a quirky idea or a quirky something, it went in.
I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've heard this record. It's in the hundreds. But I will say that the overall vibe, if I had to just pick one word to sum it up in terms of the feeling it gives me, it's romantic. There's a romance. There's something about, I think it's you guys, and maybe I'm reading into it, but I'm hearing a band falling in love with each other. I'm hearing the romance of the reverb, which has a romance to it. I'm hearing the romance of a new time and a new form of music, and the romance of these people falling in love with their own brains and abilities.
God bless you.
I'm hearing all these things. Whether or not it's true is actually beyond the point.
I mean, I'm thankful that you hear all that. It's really fascinating. It's interesting. You coming to me to get my impressions of how we did it from my side. But once we go out, it's like anybody does any art project. It goes out, and how it's interpreted to those on the receiving end, it's always just fascinating how broad and how many different interpretations people and how many different kinds of feelings they have, when they hear the music. And that's the great thing about music. It never ceases to amaze me, music, and how whatever mood I'm in or whatever mood I'm trying to get out of or something, how music can always draw me in some other direction, and it's never quite the same. You might get something you like to play all the time, and then you get bored with it, and you go move on to get something else, come back to it. But it never lets you down that way if you're prepared to open yourself up to it. Yeah. If you're not blocking.
This one, I mean, if we were to talk synesthetically about your records, in other words, bark would be painted in tans and browns. And this particular record has, I think, the broadest color palette. I'm seeing all kinds of colors.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was really our coming-of-age record.
Yeah, I mean, it's exploding with an effusive palette that just refuses to let up in the entire duration of the record, and it's so broad.
Once we did the first album, then when we were preparing for the second album, I'm sure that in rehearsals and whatnot, everybody searched not only musically for an approach of the musicians and the vocals for an approach, and with Grace just joining the band, a shot in the arm that way. And I mean a shot in the arm in that there's a personality we don't know intimately yet.
Yeah.
And there's surprises coming in all different directions. And so when we went back in to make this album, I was really, okay, let's go in and make this album now. This is going to be a lot different than the first album.
So, what's then interesting about that first day is that you go ahead and you define what psychedelic music is going to be, whether intentionally or not. And by the way, we didn't even talk about this song breaking into a whole other light swing section. She Has Funny Cars. The way that it does that is so brilliant. And also Marty and Jorma writing a song together, which is a rarity in itself.
Exactly.
Coming Back to Me was actually written the very day it was taped. So after the Plastic Fantastic session, later on that day, after Marty had left the studio and smoked a particularly strong joint with Paul Butterfield, in a 2018 interview with Shindig, Marty said, "I was in my room and I tell you, I couldn't find my legs. I got up and went to the guitar, Bam! In 5 minutes, the song came out. He then rushed back to the studio where he found Jerry Garcia, you, and Grace. You guys then did the song in a single take. And to me, that's the apotheosis of what I imagine the 1960s to be. A classic song written and recorded in real time, all under the influence of incredibly strong weed. Marty's words are pure poetry and aptly reflect the fog deep within which he most surely created this masterpiece. And I always thought it was as good as Today, which, of course, I'm sure was more labored over. But coming back to me, I don't care how many times I hear that song, it just brings me to a place, and I'm not alone there. It's just as effective every time I hear it.
I think you're right there.
Finally, you actually agree with me. It's so much less work just to say, you know what, you're right.
I'm a slow learner.
By the way, our first interview, I'm done editing it. And man, you disagreed with literally everything I said. It was like, it was an indoctrination. And I feel like I passed some kind of test.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to approach this interview here from what I actually remember in the studio from being a 21, 22, 23-year-old in these early years, when you're trying to piece back something that happened 60 years ago. What I think is fascinating is how it was for us in reality while all this is just traveling past you at, 50 miles an hour. It's kind of like in the trenches fighting you. You're worried about what's happening right now. Can you get through to survive this day? And I mean that in a very positive way, not a negative way. But so much was going on in our young lives, and some of it we thought was in our control, and most of it not in our control, and us being just part of the whole larger picture that was going on.
Yeah, I don't know how you got any sleep at night.
When we were young, you didn't have to sleep.
Let me put it to you this way. I honestly believe that me not living through the 60s was the only way that I was going to make it to my 50s. I mean, I'm 54. I don't think I would have made it out of the decade alive.
Well, some people didn't.
Yeah. The excitement of things changing in such a seemingly positive way and in such a positive and exciting direction, I think I would have gotten swept away with things. So the oasis of calm on the record, having coming back to me in Today on the record like that, ultimately, I wish there was more of this kind of stuff in the Airplane catalog, because you very quickly go into a much more brazen direction. Not that there's not more contemplative moments.
Don't forget, we were coming out of that period of time of a gentleness into a period of time that wasn't so gentle.
Right.
And so it reflects. But also, when you're creating stuff and you're working on things, you have to react to the times around you, and more gets done, I think, in the direction you're headed with that intensity than not. So we were headed for a very intense period of time, and the music showed it. And you were innocent only once.
Anytime you guys do slow and reflective, whether it's Martha or Good Shepherd or Turn My Life Down is a great example. It just always works for me. And I hang on to those moments, and I cherish those moments in your catalog because you do it so well. But I just think of that image of Paul with the Che Guevara guitar. You guys had battles to fight, and so there's not always time for that reflective oasis.
Yeah, we didn't plan that ahead, but it's hard to go out into Golden Gate Park to be in, and then that event in the middle of the day to sing a gentle little song coming back to me, I mean, today we turn that with a little more edge to it, when we played it in person later on, that could lend itself to that within our set. But things change. It's just, that was, I think, what was the greatness about Jefferson Airplane is how much things changed over a short period of time.
Yeah. So November 2nd, Jerry Garcia comes in and plays on Today. All right, that about does it. For over 4 years now, Discograffiti's Friday episodes have been completely free, and it's been my pleasure. But for a variety of reasons, Discograffiti's now moved to the subscription-based Patreon as our primary platform. Moving forward, our public stream will feature a teaser of the Friday episode and a Tuesday teaser of the bonus episode, and that's all. But here's the good news. Only $5 a month will get you the weekly Friday podcast to which you become accustomed. That's it. It's a no-brainer at just $1 an episode. And just that little bit will be what's required to help the show survive. To sweeten the pot, you'll also get regular installments of the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. That's Rudy Fishman's podcast within a podcast featuring our Patreon members as guests. You'll also get access to over 100 back episodes of that show. The $10 Lieutenant tier gets you all that, plus access to half of the Patreon archive. That's hundreds of additional episodes, plus copies of my personal show notes, which include invaluable research, star ratings, and reviews. But the $20 major tier is the place to be, unless you can support the show on even higher tiers, which, if you can afford it, offers substantial perks, including advertising on the show and selecting the guests and artists I cover. With the major tier and above, you get it all. The Monday bonus episodes, aka the best stuff, the Friday show, the Soldiers of Sound podcast, plus access to the entire archive. That's many hundreds of Patreon episodes, an absolutely endless barrage of music entertainment, including 50 episodes of The Private Press with Paul Major, Rock Cousteau, Queasy Listening, and so much more. So support the podcast that's been supporting you for years. Discograffiti's calling, and it needs you, so don't risk feeling guilty by not giving. But enough of me yapping. Go on, subscribe now. Visit patreon.com/discograffiti and find the tier that's right for you. Stay tuned, because next week brings upon us the 9th installment of Feed Your Head, the Great Jefferson Airplane Deep Dive, in which Jack and I complete our track-for-track deep dive on Surrealistic Pillow. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Then, come Monday, the major tier gets a very special treat. Monday's bonus episode is part 20 of our love series. It's the action-packed conclusion of our brutally honest interview with Baby Lemonade's Mike Randall, Rusty Squeezebox, and David Green about what really happened at the end of the line between these guys and Arthur. There'll be a very short sneak peek running publicly for free on Tuesday morning, but the entirety of the show will only be accessible on the major tier of our Patreon. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful son Mason, Jack Casady, Brad Davis, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, my mom, my dad, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, and access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into the amniotically dark and cozy psychedelic underworld of the 60s and 70s is to leap headfirst into our Spirit series. That's episodes 241 to 249. The Lenny Waronker interview, that's 244 and 245. Our ongoing Graham Nash interview in which he talks about everything he's ever done. Our 13-episode Moby Grape series featuring interviews with Peter Lewis, Don Stevenson, and Bob Mosley. That's episodes 208 to 214. The Beatles' Pete Best. That's episode 188. Our free design interview with all the Dedrick siblings. That's 160 to 162. Our Mamas and Papas series featuring my 16-hour Michelle Phillips interview, which she says is the best interview she's ever done. That's episodes 141 to 159. My 13-hour interview with Terry Kirkman and Jules Alexander about everything the association ever did. That's 109 to 113. My interview with Vashti Bunyan about her life and everything she's ever recorded, that's 103 to 104. My interview with Os Mutants Sergio Diaz, that's 86 and 87. Lou Barlow on the Zombies, that's 59 and 60. Foxygen's Jonathan Rado on Todd Rundgren, that's 37 and 40. Anthony Fantano on the Velvet Underground, that's 32 and 33. Bob Forrest on the band, that's 25 and 27. Andrew Sandoval on the Monkees, that's 22 and 23. Don Randy on David Axelrod, that's episode 17. And Pink Floyd is 1 and 2. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, June 26th, we're coming at you with part 2 of Jack Casady going track for track with me on one of the great classics of all time, Jefferson Airplane's Surrealistic Pillow. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!